Welcome, sentient beings from all known universes and beyond. It's time to activate your cranial downlinks and prepare to receive a raft of discussion on a cosmic ocean of science fiction and fantasy topics, interviews with local area genre devotees, and insightful prognostication by our soothsayers of science fiction, our forecasters of fantasy, and any other beings that happen to get caught in our gravity well. This is the Galactic Driftwood Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to Galactic Driftwood Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about Superman. There's a new series out, My Adventures with Superman. We're going to talk about that today. My name is Chris.
My name is Bill.
And we're just going to go in whatever order, so please continue.
Yes. So, hey, I'm Seth, and we're all organized today.
Charles.
And I think we heard Jenna in there.
Yeah.
So all good.
But did we? That's the question.
Yes. So there's a new animated series out, My Adventures with Superman. And you know, Seth and I have been talking about this over the last week or so. And Seth can talk a little bit more about the DC shakeup a little bit, but this is a new series. It's not telling a new story per se, just gives it a little bit of a different look and experience into Superman when he first gets to Metropolis, starting out his relationship with Lois and Jimmy, and getting started at the Daily Planet, and him discovering his powers and all that kind of stuff. So this is Superman in his early days. It covers a little bit of his childhood. The shorter episodes, slightly refreshed animation type style. And to be honest with you, I wasn't sure if this was something I was going to like. And I watched the first episode and I could take it or leave it. But Seth continued. Seth had watched another episode and convinced me to keep going, and I have. And I just finished watching the third episode today, and you know what? It's growing on me, and I do think I like it a little bit. It's definitely it's a PG type rated series. It's not intended for young adults or adults or even children. It's just kind of out there. It's good, clean fun, so to speak, where you get to go through Superman's adventures. It's not for everybody. I have some issues with the animation style. So as you can see here, there's not a lot of detail in the backgrounds and the landscapes and things like that. It's very plain, but it's not focusing on the animation style per se. It's focused on just the story, which helps keep things moving, I guess. It's Superman versus whatever bad guys. It's Lois trying to get the story, putting herself in danger, and Jimmy's kind of out there trying to get that one perfect shot for the Daily Planet, right? So, but it's been good, and I struggle with it, and they've made a few episodes, like I said, 3 so far. But I'm not sure if I'm sold on it. I don't know why this exists per se. And I can tell you that so far, that when I first saw the trailer, I can tell you that I was really excited about it. The trailer made this seem, the way it was advertised, pitched, I'll say, was this. It was like, hey, we're gonna take what you like out of anime, we're gonna slam Superman into that. But after having watched it, that's not really the sense that I'm getting. So I've been disappointed on that level personally. But again, it's growing on me. So we'll see where we end up.
Yeah, so my concern watching the first episode with this is that they're trying to capitalize on the popularity of Japanese animation style and everything, and just try and put Superman in that to get that audience to bring the numbers back up, the interest. That's kind of what I felt like. It was fun, but it felt more like an attention grab to me.
So
I would agree with that actually too.
To specifically counter that, I don't think that this was done to ooh, we've got Superman in anime now. Like, they've been making anime of all sorts of stuff for a while now. It usually just goes below the radar. Like,
I know, and this is another popular attempt to me.
I think it's just the art style they decided to use. It looks very reminiscent of the facial styles and whatnot are much more reminiscent of American anime,
Yeah.
Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah.
I get a lot of that feel from it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think it's just a style they decided to go with. And it might also be that it was cheaper to draw that way.
Yeah, it's very plain.
Yeah, it feels cheaper, and that's what was discouraging for me, because it's like, this is DC. We know how far they can take things. It didn't feel, again, when I saw the trailer, I was kind of excited because the trailer didn't make it seem like it was all going to be broadly cheap. But then, like, when they're fighting robots or whatever, it's all very plain. It's very polygonish in some aspects of it, and I wasn't happy with that. However, after having just kept watch it, when I keep watching it, if I can ignore that, I do enjoy it. And it's not too long or whatever, but like, once I really start, because and maybe that's it. Maybe my mindset is expecting more from the anime style, what anime fans expect, because I'm an anime watcher as well. And I feel like the trailer was cut for an anime, but the actual series is just another, Airbender, if you will, Americanized animation type series. So, sorry.
Here.
Yes. I don't know, but I am liking it. It's a 7 out of 10 for me right now, and I started at a 3 out of 10.
So yeah,
Okay.
we're at the first 3 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, like, if I was writing, I'd like save the big set pieces for later on.
Yeah.
Like and it is kind of like, these few episodes are probably also a pilot where they're trying.
Yeah, it does feel that way too. Yes, exactly.
Where like, all pilots feel a little bit different from the rest of the series, specifically because sometimes they haven't figured everything out. Sometimes they're trying to save a little bit of money on the animation just in case it doesn't get the numbers they're hoping for. But like, I would expect, like, since it is really an origin story for Superman, you wouldn't expect his, like, big fight with Zod to happen like the first episode.
Yeah. And so I want to do something here as kind of if we could, as a minor experiment. Bill, that link, could we cue that up?
Yeah. Let's watch that trailer and see the difference.
Let me get that up here.
Because it's gonna depict something that is what, I won't say trapped me, but is what drew my attention to this series and how it was cut.
That's a good idea.
And this felt like, oh, we're gonna get this new adventure series of Superman. It's gonna be really cool. And it gave me, this was like, again, to me, in my opinion, it was cut like you would have a Japanese anime done.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion. But we should cue that up and check that out. So while Bill does that, I just finished watching the 3rd episode this morning, and it had Lois in one scene does this kind of portrayal of it felt Pokemon-ish a little bit in what they did for some of it, but we'll get into that. It looks like this is about ready.
Yeah, let me go full screen on it here. Okay.
We're not getting sound.
You're not?
Well,
Nope.
Okay, hold on.
Nice pink shirt, Superman.
Right.
So I guess while we're figuring this out, I'd like to actually say what I liked about
Yeah,
the show.
please.
We've been kind of ragging on it, but I really like the characters. Like, the beginning, like, this is how I think, when I think of Superman, this is how I think of Superman. This is like a big, dorky Kansas kid who is just, like, trying to figure it out. He's maybe not good with people because he hasn't, like, been able to be around a whole lot of people.
Yep.
But there's also the wonder and the happiness. Like, in the first episode, when it shows him as a kid when he first figures out he can fly, and it's just such a happy moment that we keep forgetting to put in our Superman stuff. Is like, he's a kid who figures out he can fly. He's gonna love that. he's gonna be happy with that.
And he's still adjusting to his strength. Like even with an alarm clock, okay, don't break the alarm clock. Okay, don't break the sink. Yeah, don't do all these things or whatever. I agree with you, Seth. Like the especially Lois isn't perfect, and they show that in here. And Clark has to deal with the fact that Lois might lie. You know, that Lois will put herself in danger for what he might consider this is a stupid reason to do this. But he's also starting to learn to accept Lois for who she is. You know,
like with so many of the comic book stories, or at least with the DC stuff, and they make excellent animated movies, in my opinion. And their animated and television material, it like kind of is better than Marvel's, in my opinion.
Yeah, I have that video whenever you're ready.
With so many of them, like the characters are actually kind of subsumed into the archetype of Batman. Like, Batman is just, he's gruff, and that's where they stop. He's gruff and he's smart. Yeah. But with this, they're actually giving these characters a few different traits that makes them really relatable. Like, Superman is like just a sweetheart and a nice guy, and bashful.
He's not a brooder like he was in the other ones in the films that is depicted. So
he's a little bit of a goober. Jimmy is obsessed with cryptids and conspiracy theories, and he's a little bit more of the comic relief, and he gets an actual like character. And then Lois is we're seeing her at the start of her career too. She's not Pulitzer Prize winning Lois Lane. She's like the young go-get-em, maybe a little too bit hungry for her own good reporter.
Yeah.
The chief is like, no, you show them how to make coffee, and like you're an intern.
Yeah. And so, all right, Bill, like, play it so we can get a context of.
All right, here we go.
I can do this. I'm gonna hide my powers and be a normal man having a normal day. Hang on. Starting now. Don't.
Everyone thinks they know the Man of Steel. But you've never seen the son of Jor-El like this before.
Who am I?
What was that?
Superman! I'd like to interview you for the Daily Planet.
Sorry, no comment.
Lois, these are the new interns. I want you to show them the ropes and get...
They can help me with the story. If we break this, we'll become real reporters. This is the story of the century. Who is Superman?
Lois, I know what Superman is.
Huh?
You think he's a plane?
It kind of looks like a bird.
My Adventures with Superman. 2-episode series premiere. Thursday, July 6th at midnight on Adult Swim. Next day on Max.
All right.
Yeah, so that was it.
I guess
I can see why that would hook you in. That was good.
Yeah.
And so it is, I think, a more character-based than action-based series.
It is, and I felt like they gave a little bit of action in there to make me think that might be what it has a bit of, and there is, but there's, I guess maybe I want more, right? And in animes, you always work up to these epic battles, right? Or these one-on-ones versus the good guy and the bad guy. And for all I know, they're working towards it or something, because Superman's still discovering his powers in this latest episode. Spoiler warning, Jenna, if you're continuing to watch any of it, he starts getting handle of his laser eyes, right? He wants to do a situation where he needs to do that. So as he continues to grow as Clark, he's also continuing to grow as Superman in discovering his powers and stuff. So, like I said, Seth and I went back and forth on it. I told him, I was like, hey, I don't know that I'm really sold on it. But he convinced me to keep watching, and I have, and it is growing on me, and it is getting better. And I think there's maybe some validity to the whole, like, it could just be a pilot kind of start out, and maybe it does improve over time. I just wish they I could see where more effort could go in and some of the animation styles or something like that. But if I look past that, I do enjoy the characters. Lois does some very funny things in the third episode that I thought that was pretty good. you know. And same with Jimmy, and then Clark Kent. To your point, Seth plays this kind of geeky guy, and when he's put in weird situations, he's just, he's completely different. But he's struggling between, okay, now when I become Superman, I have to act like Superman. I'm not Clark, but he still gets nervous around Lois and stuff like that. So all of those things are in there, and I do think there's more focus on the characters, and that part is a bit refreshing. So I think that's what's pulling me in now. But the trailer to me felt like this is going to be an action adventure series with Superman, and it's not really about that per se.
I will say I do appreciate the fact that because this is an urban environment, it's going to be diverse. We now see more diversity in the representation of the characters.
Oh yeah, hardcore.
So
I mean, that Lois is ambiguous in what she might possibly be. Jimmy is obviously not the same Jimmy that people are used to, and it works. It doesn't feel forced. It feels very natural.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like just a detail from the first episode that like made me realize I was really gonna like it is like after the fight at the end of the first episode, or no, it was the second episode. Yeah, the big fight at the end of the second episode. Superman Clark cleans up the city that they wrecked.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting detail because normally they don't cover any of that, and it shows Superman after. To your point, there's like these flipped over cars, like small fires everywhere, and he turns around and he looks and he's like, "Look at this mess." Right, and so he does his super speed thing, and he's flashing back and forth on the screen, and he kind of puts everything back to maybe the way it should be. Realistically, those cars that were flipped over are still not pristine, and they flipped them back on the right side. I was like, but then I was like, that wasn't the point about it, right? Again, we can harp into details, but it was just Superman fixed it all up and was like, okay, we're good.
But the thing is, in every one of the movies, everyone calls him a Boy Scout, but they never actually show him being like that Boy Scout. Fair.
In this one, you get to see him be the Boy Scout. Yes, absolutely. Nice. So there are things to appreciate about it, and again, it was where I'm having to reset my expectations, and I hate going into things with expectations, and I feel like that the trailer. Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, we're gonna get this anime style Superman kind of action thing, and it's a Superman sitcom. Is that fair?
It feels more targeted towards younger viewers.
Yeah, it is definitely. Yeah, it's not targeted for my audience or whatever, but I'm a lover of all things Superman, so I will try to ingest all of it.
It's also Adult Swim, so it could change. Like
weird. Yeah.
Well, it could change. Like this, could be like something that grows as time goes on, or I don't know. Like I don't know what their plans for it are, but I kind of like it. I don't need all my superhero stuff to be gritty and dark, and I don't like that in Superman anyway. Like this is the kind of Superman that I kind of envision, kind of from the old JLA days.
And you know what? That's a thing that we've talked about on this show before, Seth. Yeah. I like the darker aspect of it. I like the Batman dark reality kind of world, and it's bleak and
I'm fine with that for Batman.
But you're right. Yeah, if we take Batman out of it and we have just Superman, does it need to be that dark? And you know what? It doesn't.
Well, it doesn't even need to be dark. Like Batman can be dark, while Superman can. Like that's why they're they work together. But when they're both dark and broody, they're the same hero.
Yeah, that's true.
Like Batman and Superman work as an odd couple because Batman's all gruff and grumpy and Superman's all sunshine and we got to save all the people, and Batman's just fine, I'll make me.
Except for So, and I think for someone who likes the darker Batman side of it, that's why I like Zack Snyder's interpretation of the Batman and Superman world. But if you were to take that out, let's say we want the Christopher Reeve era type of Superman where it's lighthearted and you kind of plays this dorky reporter, that's what my Adventures of Superman is, And I do like that.
I kind of think that's where Superman should kind of live.
Mm-hmm.
Because he is an all powerful kind of like god figure almost.
Yeah.
By the time most of the time when we're watching Superman movies or reading Superman stories, he's achieved that final Superman power level.
Yeah.
Where he's the biggest and the best.
Yep.
And I think that more of that Boy Scoutness in those depictions of him would make him a more interesting character.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if he's like Batman and he's just like angry and like sad all the time, we're just like, oh, he's just stronger Batman then, I guess.
Stronger, angrier Batman.
Like, I just want the difference. Like, I want the contrast.
Yeah.
If you get, like, there's room for the darkness, but there's also got to be room for some of the people, like the light. Like,
so would you prefer, or can you see as we go down the path here with My Adventures in Superman? Let's say they do a full season. It probably wouldn't be good for them then to look at introducing other aspects of DC into it, right? We shouldn't bring Batman in. We shouldn't. Okay.
Yeah, I think they should introduce Batman and the Flash and whatnot, and like Batman should totally hate this version of Clark. Like it should 1000% be like sandpaper to Batman, and maybe he's just like, no one can be this good. He's got a secret. I have to take him down.
That, you know what? I would honestly enjoy that a bit.
But
yeah.
I think if you were going to do that, it would be cool if Batman is like maybe a decade older than him. So
yeah, like
I admire him a little bit, but Batman is just like older and jaded.
It shouldn't be like a young billionaire Bruce Wayne. It should be like an older guy that just doesn't trust him. It's got to be something that stinks about Superman kind of thing.
Yeah, and you know what would be a real fun? Like, you could also have like the trio investigating the legend of the Batman.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then Superman encounters the real Batman, who's just like an urban legend because he's just like a local superhero or something. But like that's kind of how Batman is sometimes presented, as an urban legend. Like when he begins, something like that criminals are afraid of. He's not and I mean, it would make sense for this world because it's setting it up from like there's not like. When Lois brings news of a flying man to the chief, he's like, get out of here. That's ridiculous. So this is very much a world where superheroes are only emerging, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So like Batman could have existed. Like,
and the bad guys are using technology in all the worst ways kind of thing. But yeah.
But I mean,
so
like, that would be really fun to me. Like, see an old grizzled Batman dealing with this young, idealistic Superman.
So,
what world do you live in, Clark?
We'll have to have our audience, tell us what they think and their thoughts. But I think a concern for everybody who, whether it's this animated TV show or their favorite movies that are going to come out, what the strike is going to do now that the actors have joined the writers in the strike against the Hollywood machine.
We should talk about that a little bit briefly.
Boo the Hollywood machine, not boo the actors and the writers.
Right. Let me get that right.
So the actors who, I think the strike goes in effect when I read midnight for SAG-AFTRA, they are not allowed to do promotions of movies, not even from their personal social media. They're not supposed to do actual filming, actors' work, nothing like that. And those three things are a huge impact, I think. And what they're doing is they're joining the writers who have been on strike for a while now. Because, and this is only the second time this has happened since 1960, I think is what they said. And what that did then was get people more reasonable rates, conditions of pension, and health care. So what this strike is, they're all rebelling against the use of AI and streaming without adequate compensation if things are going to be streaming, especially since what apparently made them walk away from the table is there was no guarantee of seeing the numbers of what is popular and then being paid related to those numbers.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Another thing that made them walk away is that the Hollywood Union, the AMPTP, had a groundbreaking AI proposal where they would pay a background actor a day's work to be able to use their likeness and image with AI forever.
Forever, right. Yeah, I think that was and they wouldn't bend on that one. The actors were like, no,
you don't bend on that.
Yeah, and they wouldn't bend.
You can't.
But how long before do you think they'll be able to create images of actors that don't resemble real actors, and they just use those in films instead of the
I would guess it's going to be the same, like that'll go into these negotiations is like, hey, you can't
use my likeness.
No one's going to work on a movie where you're using AI, using this to replace actors.
Yeah.
What if the movie's all AI?
Well, then
I mean, that's
do whatever they want, but they still need.
But I mean, that's animation at this point. The question is, will the voice acting be enough? And then
the voice actors still probably wouldn't work if it was presented
completely AI. So, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, if the AI inflections and voice, is that good enough to replace the voice actors? And if it isn't, you're going to have to still get contracts. And if those individuals say, no, you've used complete AI and you're trying to go that route, then we're not going to work for you.
Here's the thing. Is just because you can doesn't mean that you're going to be able to make money on it or that people are going to be interested in watching it.
Right.
One of the things that brings people to films is they want to see their favorite actors. They want to see something that somebody created that they know has a particular style or whatever. There's content that can be consumed just to consume, and that's whatever. But that's not what's going to make it into the big screen. I think the theaters would have to buy into it. The theaters would have to know that people are going to come in and they want to pay to watch it.
And the first thing I always ask Bill when he's like, "We're going to go see this movie," my first question is, "Who's in it?" Because I want to know what to expect.
Well, mostly though, Melinda, I think that's because that gives you an idea of the quality of the movie based on the actor, right?
Yep.
But Chris, to what you were saying, I think people will watch shows like take anime, for example, right? They have their favorite anime characters, and if a new one comes out, a new movie or something with an anime character that they like, they'll go see it. And I think that eventually it may get to be that way with AI. If you have these fully realized and able to speak like a normal human in a movie, that people would become similarly attached to those as they are to anime.
I don't see that myself where people get attached to it.
I don't
because either. There's no compelling reason other than it's a niche, right? It's not actually anything real or big. So here's where you're going to find out whether or not it's going to work. And it's going to happen in the adult industry because it's already happening a little bit now, is where you have fake people on these adult websites that don't exist that are gaining followers and things like that, and they're not real. It's just AI generated titties, right? Just whatever. So, however, I don't know that we're gonna see where that takes off for a film where that has a following. Like,
so Chris.
Wait, I was gonna say at that point, though, I think people might be more willing to watch animated porn because then in the back of their mind, maybe no one's being hurt. And no one's in an industry that they're taking advantage of. That's not possibly my daughter in an industry.
That's a niche area where I can see would for lack of a better way to say it, would be successful. I don't see it for blockbuster films and things like that.
Chris, I'm actually going to agree with Bill here, and I totally think we're going to see AI actors who become big and famous and maybe a thing. Probably only like one or two. Because Hatsune Miku and the Vocaloid stuff.
You have to explain that for people who don't know, Bill. I mean, Seth.
Chris doesn't. I would thought you two would have known the vocal. So there's a thing called a Vocaloid. It's basically just one of the first kind of computer-generated voices that was good enough to produce music, or at least, I mean, to our ears, it's not very good, but to certain people, just kind of ate it up. And like Hatsune Miku, it does concerts, gives interviews, is a huge thing over, at least in Japan. And
I have come across this. Yeah, I just pulled it. Yeah,
like she's had whole shows and goes like it's a whole media empire with these Vocaloid things.
So there could be room for that. Where that stands with everything else, I don't know. And I guess the question is there room for it? And is the concern that it means that there's not going to be any writers or still actors and things like that? And I don't think that's the case. So, I think this is like out of the broad range of people who are producing films or whatever, you'll have that, as you mentioned, the one or two that maybe 10 and 15% of those might be AI based or something. But
I think I'll moderate my stance just a little bit, because I think Hatsune Miku works because she's very obviously fake. She's still very anime.
Yeah.
So maybe how I see this going is less that there are going to be AI actors that are popular in movies, but maybe there are AI actors who perform in animated movies.
Okay.
Could be.
Yeah.
That'd be a whole genre just for AI.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be its own genre.
It would be a gimmick, I think.
Yes.
That people would attach to, and then you might see this.
I think in the next maybe 10 years or so, yeah. But I think eventually the AI creation, the AI themselves, the voice ability, and the technology is going to be such that they're going to create such compelling performances. And think of the amount of money it'll save a theater. I mean, not a theater, but a production company making a movie if they can have these AIs doing all the stunts and everything.
I don't know that it'll ultimately end up saving them money, because if the interest isn't there, there's no one that's going to buy all that up. It's a larger risk, in my opinion.
Yeah.
To say that you're going to save money, because let's be real here though. AI is still not cheap for the good quality or stuff that's needed. So what are you replacing that you're going to end up, because it's all about profit, right? If you're going to have a net even, why even bother?
But aren't they already investing in a lot of the technology they would need for that? I mean, look at the AR walls that they have now.
Mm-hmm.
That's totally replaced, set decoration and design.
That's been an improvement on efficiency and lowering costs on the landscape stuff. I don't know that we'll see personalities where we see people get swapped out. I think that's what that's a tool in my and that's how I always view AI, right? It enables us to do some things better or improve how a film gets made.
I could see it sneaking in with something like child actors.
Yeah.
And you're not going to have people aren't going to be upset if you make an AI child actor instead.
Well, let's say there was something that had to do with a child rapist, and you wanted to get as far as you could get acceptably. That's where you would take advantage of that in a child actor without having to find an actual young child.
Do we want to do that in film? Like, be like, okay, well, we have a computer model to.
No, I'm not saying depicting child like rape, like you'd use an AI just for that. But you have like older men who you might have kiss a young child that they might not be comfortable doing, that you could fill in that gap with AI, where it's acceptable to show this something that's not acceptable, obviously, on screen. I'm not saying show a rape or anything like that. But
Seth, because there are movies that depicted that. I can't remember. I think it was Nick Nolte was in a movie called Prince of Tides. Mm-hmm. And there's a scene where basically two of the kids and the mother are being raped by these criminals. And like you see the girl's feet kicking in one scene, you see the boy pushed down and his face come up crying. And scenes like that won't have to be filled by a child anymore.
Okay, maybe better.
That's what I mean. There are films that want to cover things like sex trafficking or whatever, but it's hard to do a reenactment, if you will, of something without having to find like, oh, well, she's definitely not like 5, right? And it's just like, as awful as that is, but again, it comes down to ethics. Like, should you go that far? Should we just leave it to our imagination and just cut to another scene, or do you go as far as you possibly can without having to actually use a child actor? I don't know.
Well, and that brings up a similar question in that if you can do this with AI with a great amount of realism and detail, and they're going to be using it in the porn industry.
Yep.
Are
and that's
there
a concern? Yeah.
Yeah.
And to Jenna's point earlier, does that
Yeah.
people will see that as I'm not actually doing any harm to anyone because it's not real.
Right.
There's challenges.
On the other hand, it will be and is already being misused to put like real people's faces on these things and produce.
Yeah. They do that with celebrities all the time now.
Never agreed to that.
Yep.
Did any of you get a chance to watch the Jonas Awful episode of Black Mirror?
No,
not yet.
Because it kind of what it does is it takes a person who has signed their cell phone, dealies, the terms and and then presents that person in an episode or on the TV as AI representing that person. It makes it even.
So they signed like something for their phone, like just the agreements and all that jargon, and then it completely missed that
for her phone and her computer and whatnot. And the agreement they stuck in there was you can have AI represent you. Well, and then at the same time, what makes this episode funny is they have her played by Salma Hayek as AI from Salma Hayek also. So letting AI be, she gets paid if AI acts as her. So they've got a real person being represented by AI as an actor that everybody knows, and it destroys both their lives.
Huh.
So
I mean, that's the question that's going to come.
Right. Well, I definitely want to have to see that, because I do recall this was going to be a thing, and it was another look at where AI can be destructive in nature.
It gets a little, just as a warning, it gets a little, I think, American Pie-ish in the middle.
I love that. I'm a huge fan of American Pie personally. So now I'm looking forward to it. So.
I'd be willing. I just say even watch that alone if you're not going to watch the rest of the Black Mirror series. Just that episode was pretty good.
All right, good deal.
So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of questions, and I think that's why both the writers and the actors are trying to get ahead of it. Like for the writers, like one example of where the AI hurts them. So they get paid the most when they submit the first draft of a piece of entertainment that might be filmed. And then they get paid less for subsequent rewrites. So they could use AI to build the first draft and lock the writers out of that payment, and then use real people to do the rewrite, to make the lines better, to add the more human touch that they need. But then they're getting cut out of the bulk of what they need or should be getting had they put the scripts.
Let me ask a question along that line then, Jenna. So they don't want the studios to be able to use AI to create the first draft of a movie script or something, right? What do you think about the writers being able to use AI to create that first draft? Do you think that should be allowed?
That's the unsaid thing, because studios could argue, well, they're just using it.
It's a tool.
Or are we saying that the writers are artistically ethical and not using it?
Right.
Is that the assumption we're going to make?
Right. Because if you have that tool out there, anybody could use it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
However,
Well, if you can
Well,
afford it.
anyone can use it. The purpose of it though is you have to feed it what it is you're trying to do, and
Sure.
so if you learn how to do it, it doesn't mean anyone can just type 2 sentences and come up with
No.
a huge thing. One of the
that-
things that makes good films and story writing is having that point to it, right? It's having that little bit of a smartness to it and what it is you're trying to tell and how you do it.
So do you think prompt generators, people that design prompts that create these sophisticated AI outputs,
So
would be as valuable as a writer?
I
going
think
forward?
prompts, I think even with the prompting though, it follows a similar formula because those prompts are going to be the same. It's 1 through 10. Just an example. It's not exactly 1 through 10, but but if everyone answers them with these prompts, it's going to have this similar type of formula, regardless of what people put into the prompts, and it's going to be a similar kind of output. When a lot of films are written, in my opinion, some of them are kind of formulaic, right? We say, oh, this is a cliche film about whatever. The films that don't kind of follow that aren't prompted, right? They're unique in what they're trying to tell, and those tend to be the better films, in my opinion. Every once in a while, you need a B movie, a C movie, and maybe those are purely generated out of AI, but we're going to feel like they're all kind of the same. They won't do well in the box office. Was it worth the effort, right?
I don't think so. I think that it's out of the box. I mean, it's too late. We're talking.
I don't think it's too late. No.
It is. Corporations all over.
But too late for what?
To stop to put the genie back in the box.
I don't think there was never putting a genie back in the bottle, but I think there's an inherent freak out over like all these jobs are going away, and
I'm not saying freak out, but there should be a certain acceptance that big companies have already hired or moved people over to secure with the AI.
Yeah.
Wait, but here's the thing. We can't assume that they have completely because there are unions and expectations for the machine
for
to
some
use.
For some of those businesses, yes.
Oh, possibly.
For a lot of the businesses are there, I think.
Like
that's why this.
They have to be able to survive until they can make a fully AI movie, and until
it's
then,
it's going to be a big player. The big player has the advantage. The big company has the advantage. It's not the little
in this case, they really don't, because they still rely in SAG-AFTRA and in this current strike. The businesses don't have the advantage because they still rely entirely on creators, and they have been living high off of these profits for quite a while.
It sounds like, if I may, that we need an After Dark AI Part 2.
Yeah.
Because we talked about AI in a recent After Dark. Bill, I don't know if we published it yet.
We did.
Yeah.
But if we did, check that one out. But now we can see, per that conversation, this is kind of the direction that we're going in.
Right.
And now we have this strike. So it may be worth us to have a follow-up conversation over what we're seeing, and the genie's out of the bottle. It's not going back in.
No.
How rapidly is this truly declining?
Right.
Or this becoming an issue, and where are we going from here?
Well, and these contracts that get negotiated, they're for a specific term, right?
Yeah.
Because then they get renegotiated. So if it gets renegotiated in 5 years, maybe in 5 years the technology's advanced enough that they can tell the writers, "Hey, strike all you want. We don't need you anymore."
Could be, but so like the next thing I think that we'll see is probably a general writers' strike with the unions who are not associated with Hollywood, because we've been getting reports that one of the major authors, who hasn't been named yet, we're still kind of waiting on the name of who released this. They were in a contract negotiation, and one of the sticking points that they're having a lot of trouble with is that the large publisher wants to be able to train AI off of and produce work off of their work.
Yep.
No. Fuck that. Fuck that.
Well, I think then that'll have to be the license. That'll have to be I think we do see a shift in that then, where authors and a bunch of writers start adding into the contracts that you cannot use my works for your large language models.
Right. Right.
But
And
the publisher, the large
Or-
publishers want to do this.
And
Or-
how long does that last? Because at some point, doesn't all works of
Yes,
or whatever
or-
eventually
yeah.
end up in the public domain?
Yeah,
Unless
or-
wait,
or we
unless
have Stephen King novels forever.
What's that, Charles?
so
Or we can have Stephen King novels forever.
Yes.
No.
New ones, and new ones.
well, if the estate keeps control of it and keeps paying off and renewing, I think their copyright, then they should be fine. It's like what Mickey Mouse does, even though it should have gone to public domain. And I think you might logically, so we just don't know how the human variable and all this is going to play out. Logically, oh, they're going to make so much money off of fake actors, fake voices, everything like that. But what makes movies amazing? It's you go in, you see people, you're like, I could one day be an actor. What is one of the things that you ask a kid a lot? What are you going to be when you grow up? And when they're really young, they say, oh, I'm going to be an actor. I'm going to be a model. I'm going to be a singer. And if you take away that ability to become like, I could be on the screen, I could do that. Even if it's a child's dream, it creates a lifelong passion for movies. And if you look at the screen, and that's cool, but it's nothing you could ever
Not
aspire
theater.
to. Yeah. And what you might see then is a surge in popularity of the stage again, because people would rather go see real people acting instead of what's on the screen. So I don't know. I think there's a human element. We cannot predict how people, especially kids, are going to react to all of this.
I think things get removed a little easier than you guys are giving it credit. And I'll give you example. I'll give you my example. One of the reasons I went into engineering is because I like doing pen and ink work. I haven't done pen and ink work for 30 years. It doesn't exist. Right?
Indeed. But on the other hand,
life goes on.
It does, but you can still do pen and ink work if you want.
Well, yeah, but the obsession was, as a kid, was architectural rendering with pen and ink, right? And it's not what it used to be.
It's not, but I'll bet someone would pay for it.
No.
But that's still pen and ink, which is important, but it's not people you can aspire to be visibly in front of your face.
Yeah.
Roles that you can aspire to do.
Also, movies
these things disappear easier. That's all I'm saying. Than what you think.
Yeah,
the kids aren't going to know the difference.
Movies and media aren't just a single person's vision. They're a collaboration between hundreds and thousands of people. Like the actors will bring what they're good at and their ideas for a character to it, and give them to a director who is interpreting the vision of the person who wrote the script. I mean, it's not always a good thing, because sometimes the producers just want to get something of theirs in there. But like when it's all AI, it's just going to be a single thing, chomping it and spitting out.
And I feel that most of the time, I mean, if AI does take over to that extent, there's going to be a whole lot more live performances you will start to see going on, because people want to see people acting. They don't want to see AI.
Yeah.
I mean, and you have to think too, like all the makeup artists, all the amazing monster creations and makeup artists that have come about because of those individual creators. If you just have a machine clanking out algorithm, they're going to keep doing the same thing over and over
again. Yeah.
Versus these new concepts that could come out of this.
Because
something to feed into it, like Chris said.
Yeah, and here's kind of my thought about allowing AI to train on other people's work. You look at that and you think, well, yeah, that doesn't seem right. But then when you look at what people do, you have maybe a great director or a great actor or a great author who have obviously seen movies. Somehow they learned how to do what they're doing, and they've obviously read books, or they've seen movies, or they trained with somebody that knows how to do what it is they want to do. So in a sense, all of us learn from the work of others. We
do. But then we put it through our own process, through our own thoughts, through our own.
But are they? But
and
where does that?
Something new out of it.
Sure, but where does that come from? I mean, is that your own processes and your own learning? Is that the sum of all of the books you've read and all of the movies you've read, as well as, of course, your life experience that then allows you to create new content?
Me there.
What's that?
The bigger part of that is me there. Like, are
yeah,
we
but
just
where do
going
you
to
come
read
from?
Stephen
Right.
King
So
forever?
Okay.
Here's the thing. We're running long on time.
Right.
And I mentioned earlier, this is going to need an After Dark AI part 2, where we can continue this conversation, because when it comes to AI, it's going to be a little bit of a rabbit hole, and there's a lot of things to talk about.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
For the purpose of this episode, I will rein it back in.
Okay.
Just one small.
It's never small, Charles. See, last 15 minutes we keep going down in different prongs.
All right, I'm just saying, let's not forget Paul Bunyan.
Paul Bunyan.
What?
I don't.
The answer, people. The answer. You have to come back, because we'll come back to Paul Bunyan.
Come back to Paul Bunyan and AI.
We'll have the Paul Bunyan After Dark episode.
Yes.
Paul Bunyan. What?
He lost.
That's how Charles is trying to hook people back in.
There you go.
Come back and see that next episode.
End it, Chris, before we get going.
Yes. Bill, take us out.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Galactic Driftwood podcast. For more information and past episodes, please visit our website at galacticdriftwood.space or subscribe to us on YouTube. And now, please deactivate your cranial downlinks, collect your towels, and be sure to watch your step as you exit our gravity well.